All right. Hello, and thank you everybody for joining our CDW Microsoft Copilot for Security webinar. We will get started shortly. Just going to give an extra minute or two. So we'll start right around 2:02, 2:03, just to give an extra minute or two for some folks to come on in from their other meetings. So far, we've got about 188 attendees. Let's see if we can get up to 250. Manifest it. If you just joined, thank you very much. We will just get started around 2:02, 2:03-ish. It's the final countdown. Let's see. All right, cool. Just about 2:02, 2:03. I think we can kick this off. So, hello and thank you everybody for joining our CDW webinar series. Today's topic is on Microsoft Copilot for Security. We have two presenters for you today. Vince Kasparian, he is a CDW badged technical architect, and we have Micah Heaton, who comes from our CDW partner, BlueVoyant. If you could go to the next slide for me, Vince. Thank you. So our agenda is focused on the newest product to the Microsoft Modern Work toolset, Copilot for Security. Vince will first take us through the current landscape that our customers like you are finding yourselves in, what Copilot for Security does and how it works, how CDW can help you enable and help you with best practices around Copilot for Security, and then we will walk through with Micah around BlueVoyant's managed security services. During the presentation today, I invite you all to have an open mind with what is possible with AI. I know it's the craziest and newest buzzword that we've been hearing left and right, but I invite you to think of where it can potentially help you in the areas around the business, whether it's what we're going to talk about today, being better defenders, maybe around Copilot for M365, where it can help workers be more productive, or perhaps maybe looking at AI of how it can help you maybe around a line of business app or even something that's customer facing. For the folks out there that manage IT budgets, or if you're a part of those conversations, I invite you to explore maybe defining where AI fits within it, if you're not already doing that. And if you start to think about it, if you haven't really started yet, is it some sort of R&D area of the budget? Or do you perhaps commingle it with other areas of the IT business, such as security or in app development, maybe a little bit in each of those? And quite frankly, how do you keep it separated if you do commingle it with those other departments? How do you measure its ROI, especially? A few things to consider. You're going to hear a lot about those things today, but I just want to kind of put the bug in your ear as you hear some of the slides here and as you attend some of the other webinars that we do and that Microsoft does. Just keep an open mind of the art of the possible, if you will. I also want to note, please stay tuned to the end of our presentation, as I'll be sharing out some information about a raffle for all of you attendees that we'll be doing around a JBL Bluetooth speaker that you'll have the opportunity to win. And yeah, I think my time has just about come, but we will talk again shortly, or towards the end, where I'll wrap us up with a few last minute items in that raffle. So without further ado, let me pass it to Vince, who will take us through Copilot for Security, and then Micah and BlueVoyant, and then back to me. And if you have any questions, PS, throw it into the Q&A column on the top of the Teams window, and I will be sure to answer them as they come. And for any ones where you stump me, we'll pass them to Vince and Micah to answer. So Vince, it's all you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Jeff. As Jeff stated, my name is Vince Kasparian. I'm the technical architect here at CDW. So I help with the enablement of our Copilot for Security initiative. So as stating this, security has become one of the biggest challenges in today's world. We could probably all agree that, right? I mean, you just recently had, not too long ago, MGM get hacked based on, password attacks from what I hear. And it kept them, mainly doing business for about 4 weeks, right? So that's been a huge kind of push moving forward. So when we see the number of password attacks, Microsoft has detected that this has tripled in the last 12 months, right? From about 1,300 per second to around 4,000 password attack per second. And the median time of an attacker to get your data has been around 72 minutes. So that's pretty quick to get in and out of your environment and get your information. So add to that the global shortage of 3.5 million skilled cybersecurity professionals. It's no wonder that security instances have become an everyday occurrence. So security professionals have a huge challenge ahead of them with this. So a challenge that we believe that Copilot for Security can help with. So with utilizing Copilot Security, experienced security analysts were 22% faster with Copilot, and they were 7% more accurate across all tasks when using Copilot for Security. And most importantly, 97% of people have said they would use Copilot for Security for the same task over. So with these statistics of Copilot for Security, let's start to look into it and to start to look at the pricing model, prerequisites, and recommendations around it. So this is probably the biggest one that everybody's probably seen, right? Is the pricing guide of this. So obviously it's a consumption-based pricing model where Microsoft has put $4 per hour per SCU. So what does SCU stand for, right? Security Compute Unit. Now, in stating this, as you can see, I've put consumption in parentheses. And the reason for this is that when you enable Copilot for Security, at the bottom of it, it states how many SCUs do you want to run. Now, when you put that number down, let's say it's 3, you are being billed based off those 3 SCUs. So as long as those are turned on for the amount of time for those hours, you're going to be billed at the end of each day for those. The reason is because Microsoft is putting storage on the back end. So when you prompt and you get information back, it's saving those within that storage unit off of that. So keep that in mind. You don't have to utilize it in order to get charged. When you turn it on, it's enabling that so you get billed each day. Now, where do SEUs come into play, right? So SEUs come into play when you start to prompt or run prompt books there that take up the usage. So for instance, if you set 3 SEUs like I was talking about, and you run multiple prompts and prompt books that are looking at, say a 2,000 line script that is coming through your environment that's causing you an issue, it's calculating on the back end how many SEUs is taking that up, right? So how much storage is that taking? So if you go over those 3 SEUs as you keep on prompting during that hour, Microsoft can cut you off and stop you from prompting until the next hour. So you wait till the next hour, then you can up your SEUs, you can lower your SEUs, or you could keep them the same and just continue prompting so you can get the recommendations, the summary information that you've been wanting to get out of that. So when looking at this, right, Microsoft recommends sticking with 3 SEUs because you can run effectively the right amount of prompts for your environment. But obviously you're going to have to figure that out within yours. But that's just kind of a standard that they go off of. You can go as high as 100 SEUs during this time if you really get into a lot of data in your environment and a lot of stuff you want to analyze on a daily basis or hourly basis off of that. So keep in mind as you start to go through how to effectively prompt so you can keep some of those SEUs down and get the information you need during that hour. So in stating the pricing off of this, Microsoft only recommends a prerequisite or requirements of an Azure subscription, right? That's only a prerequisite that they have in this. But some of the recommendations to have in your environment, right, is those Microsoft security products and implementing those in their environment. Stuff like the Microsoft Defender XDR suite, right? You're starting to look at Defender for Office 365, Defender for Identity, Defender for Endpoint, right? And start to implementing those products in there to Microsoft Entra and Microsoft Purview. So the reason behind that, right? You start to look at getting back as much data as possible to utilize Copilot for security to get the best return on investment on it, right? You're bringing in identity alerts and incidents. You're bringing in endpoint. You're bringing in application alerts, right? Now we can efficiently use Copilot for security to help remediate or get information back on all of those alerts and incidents that are coming from every angle. So what are some of those products that we're talking about in there, right? So I'm going to throw up a poll, or Jeff's going to throw up a poll here during this slide to see how many Microsoft security products you are utilizing today. So I'll give you a little bit of time here to fill that out. So it looks like we're using a vast array of the products within the environment. All right, so this is great to see. A lot of you are using the products already and can best effectively use, Copilot for security. So as you can see, Microsoft is fully embracing the generative AI side of things, right? Copilot for M365, Copilot for security. They're really taking that in. So Copilot for security is at the center of the expansive portfolio of products that are listed here. Microsoft is in a unique position to lead this shift in security, not just because of their investments in generative AI, but also because of their robust portfolio of security solutions. So with the data coming from these vast array of security products, Copilot for Security can expand on that data and take it to new heights by analyzing it quicker and more efficiently for you. Right? How do we get to that solution faster? So Microsoft is not only has connections into their own products that you see here, but some third-party products as well. So let's take a look at some of those third-party products. So I'm going to throw up a second poll here that Jeff will have with these third-party products to see what you have today or what you may be utilizing. So I'll give you a little bit of time to see if you're utilizing any of these third-party products. I will say Microsoft is always looking for new third-party plugins and talking with partners that they have to add more and more to this, right? As you start to come into play. Looks like we got probably around a little under a third, a fourth of the people that are utilizing some third-party product within this. So that's great to see from there. So with also this, right, you're plugging into these third-party tools. With the connections through API, third-party tools like Jamf, Tanium, and Red Canary to gather as much information about your security environment as you can, right? We want to get that holistic view of your environment. We don't just want to get what you have in Microsoft products, right? We know that people are using, a vast array of security stuff. So with something like Jamf, for an example, you can look into gathering information about your Mac OS devices that you may be managing, right? We know that, Intune, Intune may not be the key for managing your Mac OS devices. You use something like Jamf that's out there. So you want to know more about your Mac OS devices, and what they're going through. So that's the key here. We want to get your whole holistic environment. So you can pull in stuff such as like file vault status, hardware and security configurations, firewall, and possibly suspicious applications that are installed. So in bringing in this information, we're providing you with the best results to remediate some of these alerts or incidents that are coming through. So let's take a look into the Microsoft experience of what you will see, right? So there's in gathering the data, you can do it in multiple ways, right? Copilot for Security can leverage an immersive standalone portal or embedded into an existing Microsoft or third-party product. Choosing which to use when is choosing which to use when is based on what's more important to your users that are utilizing Copilot for Security. Pulling data from multiple tools into one place in a standalone experience, or working from product experience they already know. So in looking at the standalone experience, right, it helps teams gain a broader context to troubleshoot and remediate incidents faster with a single Copilot for Security user experience. So you could summarize stuff like Sentinel incident, get device context from Intune, hunt across Defender for alerts, and get identity context from Entra and data context from Purview. So you could do this all from one space, and that is the standalone experience, right? So all the products that we listed there, you can bring in that data, and from one experience, you can see all the data that you want. Or you can utilize something like the embedded experience, right? So that offers an intuitive experience of getting Copilot for Security guidance natively within the product. So we can look at something within the product like Defender for Endpoint, and I just simply want to know about the endpoint and the alerts that are coming through and how to help remediate those alerts off of that. So we can just look at the data coming from the one product directly and to know about that and how to remediate faster within that product. Or you may have a security analyst that is just set up for Defender for Endpoint, right? So you can just give them that experience to set up and they can plug in and get as much data as possible that's in that Defender for Endpoint portal. So depending on, how you're going about things and what you want to gather, utilizing the standalone experience or the embedded experience may be better for you. So you've heard a lot already, but let's talk a little bit about how it all works, right? So we already talked about the standalone embedded experience, but how does that all work when I put in a prompt? So we all know that this is a powerful tool when we start to utilize it. So in doing this, Copilot for Security determines the initial context and builds a plan using the available skills. So the human puts in a prompt or a set of prompts that it will start to analyze, right? So it's taking the verbiage that you've put in there, picking out words, and then executes the plan to get the required data and context that is basically within your environment and the databases within your environment that are holding these security information. So once it executes that prompt to go get that information, it then analyzes all the data patterns to provide an intelligent insight. So what have you been prompting over, and what's the best recommendation that you have set to say, yep, I like the way this is. It will remember that and then gather the most information or the best information that you like to provide you back. So it'll analyze those data patterns that we see and then combines all that data and context into a model that you can get a response on. So it prepares that response and then finally formulates that data to give you back to the response that you need. So if you wanted an incident summary on something, you would put that in there on the incident ID, summarize it, send the prompt off. It would gather all the context of data within your environment and then give you a straight response off of that, whether you're in the standalone or you're in the embedded experience. So you're basically taking human language and getting back a response that you can analyze accordingly. You can even ask it to perform KQL queries, right? I want to pull a report that pulls in multiple levels of data within Sentinel. What's the KQL query that I can get out of this? So it will create that KQL query for you, and then you can run that KQL query as a report in Microsoft Sentinel to give that data back. So that's a huge time saver there, right? You're looking at return on investment on that. So with Copilot for Security, you can be confident that your security is in good hands, right? So you're probably wondering, when I prompt and data is being gathered in my environment, what are the compliance controls that are going through, right? How is my data protected? So Microsoft has stated the following, right? Your data is your data, and it stays within your Azure instance, which is protected by compliance and security controls within your Azure environment. So when your data is collected, it's always encrypted and it stays there. Then your data isn't used for sales or shared with third parties. Then your data is not used to train foundation AI models. So Microsoft is already writing that Copilot for Security backend and putting down the scripts, and it's not your data and what you're prompting is not being used to make that better, right? So they're not saving that data on the back end to keep on going, right? And the reason is, we don't want to put your data out there that shows holes that may be in your environment, so an attacker can grab those, and now all your data is exposed, and they can create something towards you. So when stating this about the data, right, if you choose to deprovision or remove Copilot for Security, your data will stay in your environment for 90 days, right? So that storage will be up for 90 days. So what does that mean? If you turn it back on, your data can be, can come back up. So you're not losing that experience that you had before. And you have to tailor your solutions again to say, yep, I like this data that comes back. I don't like this data come back, right? It can give you that personal experience. It's saving all that data for you within 90 days, right? This may be all subject to change, but right now, as it states, it's 90 days. So keep that in mind as you start to look at, if you want to deprovision and then add it back in later, your data can be saved and you can still keep that tailored approach that you had before and the data you like to see. So let's dive into the portal of Copilot for Security, right? What is the experience when we go about this in Copilot for Security? And I apologize here. I had a demo environment set up and Microsoft decided to disable my subscription that I had on it. So it kind of hurt me in this experience. So I've taken a couple videos. So hopefully you don't hold it against me. I tried to keep that going there for you. So we'll see if we can get the demo videos to go through. So as you can see, you'll see in this slide here, within the video, they're analyzing an incident that has happened or they saw in Microsoft Sentinel, right? They just wanted a summary for this incident. It provides them an overview of this incident and provides them 3 entities, so like IP address, the host name, an account that it was affected on through there, right? So it gives you the basic information as you start to dive in to the summary. But wonder if I want more information, right? Off of those. I want to see more entities based off of these 3 here. I want to know more into the IP address, the more into the host name, more into that account, from there. So let me run this. So I'm putting in a prompt to elaborate on those entities. And now it's going to expand those entities as you see. So as you can see, it started to expand more and give you more information so you could do something with it, right? So you're looking at something like antivirus status, right? Do they have antivirus down on there, right? What is the OS family? Is it a Windows device, Mac device, everything along those lines? Is it joined to the domain, right? We may have a device, all of a sudden it's not joined to the domain. Well, that's not good. We need to look at that more, right? UPN suffix, you may have, multiple environments out there with multiple domains. What domain does it belong to? So we can gather more information based on those 3 entities to make a better decision moving forward. It may be as simple as, oh, I didn't know antivirus was not turned on. Well, I may need to go turn that on for that device. So keep that in mind when you start to prompt on this. You can always try to grab more information on the back end from those databases and to get more into those entities with just a simple prompt to say, can you expand on those 3 entities? So here prompting becomes the number one thing. How do I prompt more effectively, right? Maybe we should have asked that in the first one when we did our summary. And then we can expand that there instead of doing 2 prompts. Of course. All right. So off that incident in Sentinel, we came into and we found that there was 2 applications that were calling on an alert, right? We found that became a issue or an incident within there that we need to find out more on, right? So the 2 that we found was Cobalt Strike and Silk Typhoon on there, and we're like, what are even these products? So can Copilot for Security provide me more information on these products and what they're doing? As you can see here, we simply just put in a prompt to tell them more about these 2 applications, and they provided us some back end to it, right? So now we want to say, with that user that was mentioned, that MS Wood, uh, that MS Wood username, right? We want to know, okay, well, that username was attacked. Well, what devices now off that username have these applications on there? Because they've probably been compromised. And these applications are doing that. So we want to try to get the devices that it was affected on, and then we want to check if those devices are compliant with our policies that we have put down. So are we doing the right things to help stop some of these applications? So we want to do this and summarize the incident off of that. So we're putting in a prompt that's looking at that. It calculates out the prompt. And as you could see here, that M. Scott had 3 devices that could be affected by these applications. So we started to look at its compliance and to see, are we effectively applying policies and putting down the right threat protection to stop something like this, right? So we're probably looking at Cloud App for Security on top of this. So as you can see in the second bullet point there, right, Defender for Endpoint picked up a device risk on CPC M. Scott. So the third device here, that the security level was met. So they had a high security level that was met there, and we need to do something about that, right? So we may want to do, update the device's security software and applying security patches just to ensure the devices is protected against those known threats. So it's some of those recommendations that we may need to go out and do for that device directly. So it did pick up something that we wanted for that. So after addressing those issues, the devices will then become compliant, basically. So it's picking up on these 2 things that you need to do, and then those devices will become compliant because of those 2 malware applications that were set down on M. Scott's machine, right? So we obviously have a compromised machine here. So one thing we may want to do before we actually go out and remediate some of these instances, right, and remediate those applications and, find out more, is we may have to pass this by our team or pass this by management from there. Oh, come on. There we go. To pass this by a team to ensure we're doing the right thing, right? So we want to probably generate a report that says all the information we just gathered, right? So when you're talking about those entities that you wanted to break down, right? And the IP address, host name, devices that we just got, and those applications, right? And what they're doing. And we want to get some recommendations on how to remediate those instances, right? That we need to bring back to the team and say, okay, we want to do number 4, right? And take that on to remediate those issues. So here we gained a little bit more information. We want to see the last login times of M. Scott, when they started to go through. So we don't have a constant, they're pinging every time trying to log into their devices, because we may have a compromised user here. So we're going to gather that information as well. So basically, we're taking Copilot for Security. We want to write a report so we can bring back to our team or our management to give approval on the remediation task we're going to step forward with, right? So we can generate that report very easily. So as you see here, we put in the prompt, it'll calculate it from there, and then it'll give us a direct report that we can copy and paste into a file or an email that we can send off and get the right approval based off the recommendations that we have here. So what we're stating here is we found that those Cobalt Strike and Silk Typhoon had suspicious behavior and was pretty much malware on those computers. So as you see, the confidence level is saying it's very high. So they feel very highly that these 2 applications are malware, and that's stating that there. And then it'll state the recommendations on how to remediate those 2 applications that they feel are malware. So all with Copilot for security, they are effectively prompting and getting you the right information back so you can do something with it. As you saw with those 3 prompts that we just ran to get information back, we could put those directly into a prompt book and just run those all in sequence, right? Into getting the right information back. We don't have to keep on going, well, I need to write this prompt, I need to write this prompt, then this prompt, right? We could put those all 3 in one instance, hit send, and it will run all 3, get you the right information that you want. Then we can, within there, like I said, it helps to effectively know how to prompt, right? So it doesn't take up some of those SEU speeds. So that's the standalone experience when we start to look at it, right? And then how we get there. The next, let's take it a little bit into into the embedded experience, right? So here you can see I'm looking at the emails, I'm looking at Teams chats, everything along those lines. And I want to see that confidential information is maybe not, not being shared out there that shouldn't be. Or somebody's saying something about my stock, the stocks and numbers to a partner or some other person within there that shouldn't be knowing that information that hurts us. So we can effectively come in here and prompt off of, hey, I want to look at phrases, within here that won't hurt us, or confidential information is not shared within the Teams or email chats. And we're doing this in one simple prompt. We prompt, we get all the information as quick as possible, and it's coming in one location, right? And we're picking that up directly off of this. It would have taken us a long time to search through each one, trying to find, weak stocks or confidential information, right? One at a time. Here we can effectively prompt and say, look at everything for weak stocks, or, hey, I need confidential information or certain verbiage in one prompt, and it puts all the information directly in there for you. Now we can then generate a report to say, hey, here's what I found. We have an issue here. We need to accordingly do something about it. So this is really where that embedded experience comes into play, right? Is something like this. Then, like I talked about with effectively prompting, right? So when you effectively prompt, right, and you can help with the SEUs within there and what you set. And when I talked about on the second slide of mine there about the usage of the SEUs, you can look into how many SEUs you have effectively used within that hour, right? So you don't do this when you look at around the 12 p.m. in this, bar here, right? We went over our allowed SEUs of 3 units during that hour. So it gave us a little leeway, as you see with the yellow here, but the red, it effectively kind of cut us off, right? So we weren't able to prompt anymore. So we may want to go, okay, why was that during there? Maybe we did have a breach that we needed something right away, and we needed to effectively do something about that. So we may have had to turn up those SEUs for a while, and we can report back. We can also look at, hey, we may need more SEUs to put in there, or hey, we may need to take it down a bit. Maybe we could turn this to 2, off of that. We could save a little bit. So the usage reporting comes into huge help when we start to initially get into that and effectively prompting to go forward. So always keep an eye on the usage reporting. This is built into the standalone experience off of there. You will see these 3 lines up there. It will be a drop down and go into usage monitoring. So always keep an eye on this to see how many SEUs you will need and what's your daily tasks to get the best return on your investment off of there. So we start to look at Copilot for security, right? We just saw everything that it does, how we can break down effectively prompt off of that. So as you can see, Copilot for security can elevate your security program by combining the power of Microsoft security products with the intelligence of Copilot for security. So this combination results in outpacing adversaries and helping strengthen your team's expertise drastically, improving the effectiveness of the security program, right? So when we take, outpacing your advisories and spending less time in gathering that information, along with strengthening your team's expertise in here, right? So when you effectively prompt, you're getting back the information, you could see, oh, I've seen this before, right? The remediation is this. I've already had it approved, right? So Copilot for security is providing you information that you may remember during that time. And now you're like, oh, bam, I know what to do. I can effectively turn on MFA, or I can effectively turn on this compliance policy or this security policy here. So we can easily get that going. So it really helps with your return on investment in both avenues here, right? Spending less time, strengthen your security team so they can effectively remediate the alerts and incidents that are coming through on a daily basis. So here's a little bit of statistics here, and I'll try to be quick with this. So the percent time saved, right? As you can see here, the biggest percent time saved is troubleshooting minor issues, right? And running through there. So 84% it saves you in time. So your return on investment into paying those $4 per SEU is really going to become from getting the data you need and remediating that as quick as possible during those minor issues and getting that set. Then as you see here, reporting, right? You always have to create a report to say, I'm going to do this to remediate this issue. Well, if you could just type in a prompt, as you saw there, to generate a report, quickly pulls it up for you, does it, send it off. They agree, we're off and running. We can remediate that issue. So saving 63% of your time on that. So looking at that as a return on investment is huge, right? Across all these things. So that's where Copilot for security really comes into play when you start to look at the money that is being spent on it. So in stating this, right, and we start to look at your environment, we start to run those polls off of there. Your environment may be in different, different sides of this. You may have some Microsoft products turned on. You may have all of them turned on, right? So how can CDW effectively help you, right? When you start to look at something like the assessment of Microsoft 365 security, we could start to look at all of your Microsoft products that have been turned on and then tailor the approach to you to ensure you're doing the right thing to get the best security down within your environment, right? And one thing we do off of this is we look at the CIS framework and analyze your environment off that CIS framework, right? So you have E5, we can do it on a CIS level 1 basis. We can do it on a CIS level 2 basis, right? We want to ensure your environment is protected as possible and you have the least amount of alerts and incidents that come through your environment. So you're not utilizing as many SEUs to come through with Copilot for security. We want to ensure your environment is set up properly. But if you don't have products, within your environment, but you'd like to set them up, right? How do I effectively do that? Well, we could set it up with implementation of our Microsoft 365 Defender for Security professional service, right? We can implement any security product within your environment, right? Anywhere from cloud apps to Office 365, Defender for servers, Defender for cloud. We even get into Purview and Entra as well, right? We can effectively put that in your environment to ensure that you're up and running with the best security possible. and you're getting back as much data as possible, like I talked about in the beginning, right? Getting identity, cloud apps, and endpoint data to effectively prompt if you need to. We can look at stuff like data governance with Purview, right? Ensuring your data is protected, or ensuring your identity is protected, right? You start to go into that Entra ID as I talked about. Ensuring your identity, your passwords are protected. As you saw, they've tripled in the past 12 months with password attacks. So that's been a key there. How do I ensure my identity is protected? That's something CDW can help you out with. So in stating that, right, when you start to look at that, that's the prerequisites and we start to put that in. Then we can tie this in for you as well to show you how to effectively prompt, right? We'll give you overviews of these products and start to run through. We'll advise you on the best ways and what plugins to use, when to use standalone, and when to use embedded experience. We will effectively help you with your prompts and prompt books so you can best utilize that to reduce the amount of SEUs, hopefully based on there within your environment, right? How do we get the best return on investment and so we can effectively remediate issues quicker? Based off of this workshop, we can provide you with the results and next steps on the best way to move forward with Copilot for security and to get you on your way. So with stating that, I'm going to pass it along to Micah, and he'll talk about BlueVoyant with managed services. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Vince. Appreciate that. What a good job, man. Just if I could give you a round of applause for giving highly effective and concise review on what Copilot for Security means to all of us, I absolutely would. So well done, man. It's my pleasure to follow you. I do want to talk about BlueVoyant, but first I just want to say how much we love CDW and our shared customer base. We appreciate the partnership, and we are so bullish on everything that CDW brings to the table in terms of deployment capability around the tool. So I just want to reiterate the importance of that call to action that Vince just mentioned. If any of you have questions about this, I've been trying to diligently answer some of the questions and publish them with appropriate answers and links. I think it is an incredible offer and starting point to follow up with this events team here and probably Vince in particular to activate that enablement strategy. Where BlueVoyant sees the opportunity around Copilot for Security as one of the world's foremost providers of Sentinel and XDR management services on the Microsoft and Splunk stack, we see that the capabilities that are brought online by this generative AI technology and the overlay, the research and development work that Microsoft is bringing to the table is absolutely just incredible. And they really are at the pole position because of the investments that they've made in OpenAI, which is been the foundational technology that underpins Copilot for Security in the OpenAI Studio that lives and dwells within Azure. So before we dig into our perspective on this as it relates to the managed detection and response services that BlueVoyant provides on top of CDW's incredibly capable bench of deployment talent, I just want to say for everyone that had some questions about the pricing in the chat, we absolutely hear this. CDW absolutely hears this. And Microsoft does, in fact, hear this as well. It is literally the first thing that I hear on all of Microsoft's presentations as it relates to Copilot for Security. They know that they do have to fine tune this and figure it out. So please, please be aware that it's very likely that you'll see some adjustments and modification to some of that SEU pricing component, possibly like an on-demand model. We would love to see that because as an MDR provider, it's going to be extremely important for us to be able to activate our customers' Copilot for Security technology on demand, as opposed to continuously and all the time. We have very specific use cases that we want to leverage and as one of Microsoft's top MDR partners, this has been a huge focus point for us. So please know that we are standing in as your advocates when it comes to this feedback to Microsoft. BlueVoyant was one of a few partners that was part of Microsoft's Design Advisory Council from the MDR perspective to help shape this technology, the user interface, the back-end capability, and the roadmap for the next 6 to 18 months. So with that preamble, BlueVoyant provides an MDR service on top of what CDW does in terms of deploying the security technology and the modern work technology. So whether your entry point is on the productivity and collaboration side with Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, etc., or possibly the EDR side with Defender for Endpoint, or the other M365 security technology in the Defenders, and of course on the Azure side, Microsoft Sentinel and Defender for Cloud, BlueVoyant would love an opportunity to support your organization in the ongoing maintenance and management of that technology as it relates to building an incredibly robust monitoring apparatus. If you go ahead and advance the slide, Vince. Oh, I guess I had an animation in there. Just squeeze past that. We think that the opportunity, the MSSP value proposition here is really going to be on us and on our back end in a lot of cases, because the mechanic doesn't perfectly exist today where we can leverage our own Copilot for Security to talk to your Copilot for Security to perform an outcome. Where we've been focusing the majority, I'd say 90+% of our R&D time and our engineering activity is to build on top of Copilot for Security and as it relates to what we're doing in MDR. So we do have SOC analysts that watch our customers' environments 24/7. They sit in those watchtowers and they watch as activity is coming across the bow. We have threat intelligence layers that look at it and help us make some additional determinations about the risk or the actual intention of an adversary, the malicious activity that might be traversing our customers' digital estate. But we have leveraged Copilot for Security absolutely to our benefit to make our people and processes so much more efficient. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. The query language that is leveraged by Microsoft in particular for threat hunting in the Defender stack and for creating analytics rules, or otherwise in other SIEM solutions referred to as like a detection or a correlation, that have techniques, tactics, and procedures that are associated with the MITRE attack framework, is called KQL, Custo Query Language. And one of the plugins that Vince was showing is the ability to translate human language into KQL rapidly. Well, because we're managing hundreds of Sentinel environments for our customers, and we've deployed both Sentinel and Splunk thousands of times for customers, we have a pretty good sense of the kind of detection content that our customers are looking for, but it still takes quite a while to write and then vet. And then we have a separate team that does the quality assurance check on that. And as you can imagine, doing that manually, making sure our syntax is perfect so that we are very precisely interrogating the logs that our customers are bringing into that XDR environment between Sentinel and the Defenders. It takes a lot of time. Copilot has made this extremely snappy. So what used to take minutes and hours now just takes seconds, as you can see from the demo that Vince put together. And having the programmatic mastery of real operators that are battle tested in the field, leveraging this capability to produce detections for you on the fly, means that in real world language, you might see an exploit splash on CNN at like 6 p.m. at night, and you'll know that folks at BlueVoyant and the shared managed experience from CDW and BlueVoyant are creating an ability to catch that malicious activity that you just saw in the news like 3 hours later, because we can now more rapidly write this detection content via these plugins that are available for Copilot for Security. So we see it as an amplifier of all of our shared capabilities, and we are so bullish on Copilot for Security. And we just know that Microsoft is going to continue to develop the linking mechanisms that allow us to operate our customers' Copilot for Security technology with even more nuance. We're looking forward to that. Go ahead and advance, Vince. One of the benefits that we have managing customers' environments is that we can continuously provide feedback to our you can advance, Vince. We can provide feedback to Microsoft, letting them know what's working and what's not working. So we're really grateful for the early adopters of Copilot for Security, because we are immediately putting in front of Microsoft as part of this feedback loop that we have. This is what's working. This isn't what works. This is kind of the concern and hesitation around pricing. And this is what's truly going to make it possible to adopt at scale. Go ahead and advance. I'm probably going to close on this slide, Jeff. I just want folks to know that the way that Microsoft is referring to this is kind of extensibility as an MSSP. There is an additional enablement capability that CDW is going to bring to the table. I would absolutely take them up on their offer to drive a kind of an assessment or a workshop to look for Copilot readiness within your organization and dial in those technologies that are going to prove out operational excellence for Copilot for security. What we're looking to do as a managed services provider on top of that enable experience is just continuously keep your Copilot up to date. While we aren't going to manage it outright, we do want to be in there with your team and create additional enablement. So whatever CDW does in day one, as part of the managed services relationship, BlueVoyant would provide concierge engineering hours to continuously update those plugins, to create custom prompt books, and to prove out the opportunities around the SOAR function of Sentinel in particular in creating logic applications that drive down the amount of manual attention your people have to do. That's the goal. We want to create security outcomes with automation as much as possible. And we really see that Copilot for Security is really now at the hub, the center, the core of that automation function that tags into everything else as it relates to Intune and as it relates to Entra and relates to the defenders. Jeff, really appreciate the opportunity to share just a few minutes of our perspective as an MDR provider. And again, I'm super grateful for the opportunity to make a contribution and always willing to share space with our CDW fellows. Thanks, everyone. Jeff, go ahead. Let you close it out, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you, Micah. Geez, that's record time. And seriously. Okay, so Vince, if you could go to the last slide where you've got your services up, and I'll close this out. There we go. Okay. So this is the last slide, everybody. If you made it this far, we appreciate you very much. A heads up, if you stuck around to listen to the details of the raffle, in the next couple of days, you're going to receive an email with a survey. If you'd be so kind to share your feedback, it'll ask simple things, especially, what you thought of this presentation and topics that you'd like to see in the future. The voice of you all as our customer is very important to us. So if you could take a few minutes to fill it out, we will then enter your name into the raffle and circle back to you if it's your lucky day. I want to leave you with this slide. Vince shared it earlier, but it really encapsulates the value that we at CDW can bring, and it separates us from the rest of the industry. We know that you have many choices for services partners out there, but my hope today is that you can feel our appreciation for your trust to join us today, to hear us out, that we appreciate your business, and that we hope to be able to continue to work together on future projects and opportunities. So I'll close us out and say thank you very much for joining, and wish you all have a great day. Thank you very much and take care.